The sentence on Marjorie's attachment was only 8 words. Evelyn must be removed before the audit begins. Evelyn read it once, then again, and a third time, because there were some truths the mind resisted by pretending they might change if you looked at them long enough. But the words did not change. Neither did the date beneath them. Grant had written it weeks before Valentine's Day, weeks before he walked through that hotel lobby with Marjorie on his arm, weeks before he froze Evelyn's cards, restricted her access to the suite, and stood in front of strangers as though the woman he had built his life beside was suddenly an inconvenience he had every right to discard. There had never been a sudden decision. There had only been a plan. Attorney Ma Ji-won did not rush to fill the silence. She had learned that some moments required a person to sit beside the truth before they could move with it. Evelyn stood by the window of the hotel workspace, holding her phone in both hands. The city below looked exactly as it had the night before. Bright towers, headlights crossing bridges, people hurrying somewhere they believed they needed to be. She wondered how many women were walking through their own lives with a quiet suspicion they had been trained not to trust. How many women were being told they were forgetful when documents disappeared, too sensitive when money was withheld, unstable when they asked for access to what had their name on it. How long? Evelyn finally asked. Attorney Ma looked at the document again. Long enough for us to take this seriously, she said. Long enough for us to protect what we can. But this is not the whole story yet. Evelyn nodded. Her first instinct was to call Grant and demand an explanation. She wanted to hear him deny it. She wanted to hear him stumble. She wanted for one weak human second to give him the chance to say there had been some mistake. But then she remembered every time Grant had made her doubt her own memory. Every time he said she misunderstood. Every time he told her she was emotional because she had noticed something he wanted hidden. She set the phone down. No, Evelyn said quietly. He does not get to explain this away to me first. Attorney Ma nodded once. That is a wise choice. The next message from Marjorie arrived before noon. I need to explain. Please meet me alone. Evelyn stared at the words. For years, Grant had made private conversations his favorite weapon. He would close doors, lower his voice, say things in rooms where no one else could hear him. Then, when Evelyn tried to describe what happened, he would tell her she had no proof. Attorney Ma read the message and said, You do not meet her alone. Lena, sitting beside Evelyn with a cup of tea cooling between her hands, said nothing at first. Then she looked at Evelyn and added, You also do not have to meet her at all. That mattered. The decision belonged to Evelyn, not to Attorney Ma, not to Lena, not to Sejin, not even to the part of Evelyn that still wanted to understand why another woman had been able to watch Grant destroy her and say nothing. Evelyn looked at the message again. Then she typed one sentence. You may speak with my attorney present in a public place. Marjorie agreed. They met the next afternoon in a quiet daylight cafe connected to one of the hotel's public atriums. Attorney Ma sat beside Evelyn. Lena waited nearby, visible but not intruding. There were people around them, glass windows, staff within sight, and no closed door for anyone to use against her. Marjorie arrived alone. For the first time since Evelyn had known her, she did not look polished. Her ivory coat was expensive, her hair was perfect, but her face had lost that calm, detached certainty she had worn in the hotel lobby. She sat down slowly. I did not know he was going to put you out that night, Marjorie said. Evelyn looked at her. That is not the same as saying you did not know he was trying to remove me. Marjorie's eyes flickered. Attorney Ma placed a notebook on the table, not as a threat, but as a reminder that this conversation mattered. Marjorie swallowed. I knew he wanted a separation. He said you had become unstable. He said you were reckless with money. He said he needed to protect the foundation from you. Evelyn's chest tightened, but she did not look away. He told you I was unstable because he needed you to believe I could not speak for myself. Marjorie lowered her eyes. Yes, the word landed softly, but it landed. Marjorie did not ask for forgiveness. Not directly. She knew enough to understand she had not earned it. Instead, she opened a folder and slid several copies across the table. There were emails between Grant and a private accounting consultant. There were invoices connected to companies Evelyn had never heard of. There were notes about moving foundation money through contracts that did not match the actual work being done. And there was a second message. one that made Attorney Ma's expression go still. Once Evelyn signs the release, the audit concern goes away. Evelyn looked at the words, then at Marjorie. "You are going to let him make me sign something?" Marjorie's eyes filled, but Evelyn did not feel comforted by that. "I thought he was protecting the organization," Marjorie whispered. "No," Evelyn said. "You thought he was protecting you." There was no anger in her voice. That was what made the words harder. For a long time, Evelyn had believed strength meant raising her voice loud enough for someone else to hear her pain. Now, she understood that strength could also be quiet. It could be clarity. It could be refusing to make someone else comfortable with what they had done. Marjorie agreed to turn over the remaining records through her own attorney. She agreed to cooperate with the forensic review. She also agreed to step away from the Whitaker Foundation while the investigation continued. It was not redemption. It was accountability beginning, and Evelyn did not confuse the two. Stories like Evelyn's are fictional, but the patterns are real. Subscribe to Velvet Justice Chronicles for survivor-centered stories about recognizing control, choosing safety, and rebuilding your life. Grant's response came quickly, not through a lawyer, through flowers, white roses, delivered to Evelyn's temporary hotel room with a note tucked inside. "You are making a painful situation worse. We can solve this privately." Evelyn stared at the handwriting. For years, Grant had known exactly how to make cruelty look civilized. He sent flowers after humiliating her. He sent jewelry after restricting her spending. He took her to charity galas after calling her an embarrassment in private. He believed romance could cover a wound he had no intention of stopping. Evelyn handed the card to Attorney Ma. "I do not want him contacting me directly anymore." Attorney Ma nodded. "Then he will not." It was a small sentence, but Evelyn felt something shift when she heard it. For years, she had acted as though Grant's access to her was automatic, as though a marriage certificate gave him the right to her time, her emotions, her private space, her body, her explanation, her forgiveness. Now she was learning that access was not love, and love was not supposed to feel like surveillance. In the days that followed, Grant tried every version of the story he knew. First, he was concerned. He told mutual friends that Evelyn was overwhelmed. Then he was wounded. He told donors she had misunderstood a complicated business matter. Then he was generous. He told people he had offered her a private settlement, and she had refused. Finally, when none of those versions worked the way he wanted, he became angry. Messages arrived through people Evelyn had not spoken to in months. A former neighbor, an old board member, a woman from a charity committee who had once complimented Evelyn's work and then stopped calling when Grant said Evelyn needed space. Each message carried the same pressure beneath it. "Why are you doing this to him? Why can't you handle this privately? Why are you trying to ruin everything?" At first, Evelyn wanted to answer every person. She wanted to explain, to lay out the documents, to make them understand that she had not destroyed her marriage. She had survived it. But Attorney Ma gave her a better question. "Do you need every person to understand before you are allowed to protect yourself?" Evelyn sat with that, then shook her head. "No." "Good," Attorney Ma said. "Because your healing cannot depend on public agreement." The forensic review moved slowly. That was one of the hardest parts. Evelyn had spent years living under urgency. Every time Grant was angry, she felt she had to fix something immediately. Every time money disappeared, she felt she had to apologize before asking why. Now, the process required patience. Documents had to be preserved. Accounts had to be traced. Records had to be compared. Attorney Ma explained what she could, but she never pretended certainty where there was none. "You do not have to solve every piece today," she reminded Evelyn. "You only have to keep making choices that protect you." So Evelyn did. She opened a post office box in her own name. She replaced her identification. She changed passwords. She began learning how to read account statements without panic rising in her throat. She found a small apartment through a trusted housing advocate, a place with afternoon light, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen just large enough for a table. The lease was in her name. The electricity was in her name. The key was in her hand. The first night she slept there, she placed it on the nightstand beside her bed and looked at it for a long time. It was only a key, but it was hers. Lena came over with takeout and 2 mismatched mugs. They ate sitting on the floor because Evelyn had not bought a dining table yet. For a while, neither woman spoke about Grant. They spoke about curtains, about whether the kitchen needed a plant, about the difference between a home being expensive and a home being safe. And Lena looked around the room and said, "You know what I keep thinking?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "That I need a couch?" "You need a couch," Lena said, "but that is not it." They both laughed. Then Lena grew quiet. "I keep thinking about how close you came to having nowhere to go. You had people, you had a lawyer, you had a safe hotel office. But what if you had not?" Evelyn looked toward the window. She thought about the hotel lobby, about her phone dying, about her medicine in a room she was suddenly not allowed to enter, about the way even the receptionist had looked trapped by Grant's instructions. "I used to think leaving was one decision," Evelyn said. "Like you wake up one morning and walk out," Lena nodded. "And now? Now I think leaving is 20 decisions people may not have the strength, money, documents, or support to make alone." The thought stayed with Evelyn. It followed her into the next week, into the legal meetings, into the sleepless nights, into the hotel workspace CO June had offered her, not as a private favor, but as a secure place where she could meet with advocates and finish the work she had started. One morning, Mrs. Hahn brought Evelyn tea and found her writing on a legal pad. "What are you building?" she asked. Evelyn looked down at the page. Across the top, she had written Open Door Foundation. Below it, she had made a list. Emergency hotel nights, safe transportation, document recovery, legal navigation, financial literacy, childcare support, medication pickup, a person who answers the phone and does not ask, "Why did you stay?" Mrs. Hahn read the list slowly. Then she looked at Evelyn. "This is not only for you." "No," Evelyn said. "It is because of me." Seo Jun did not walk in with a check and a promise to solve everything. That was not who Evelyn needed him to be. Instead, when she asked whether the Hotel Association had ever discussed emergency lodging partnerships for women in crisis, he connected her with the independent community relations director and stepped out of the meeting. He let Evelyn present the idea herself. She did not speak perfectly. Her voice caught once. Her hands trembled at the beginning, but she spoke from a place no business proposal could imitate. She described what it meant to be locked out of a life you helped build. She described how quickly a person could lose access to money, transportation, documents, medication, and safe shelter. She described the difference between asking a woman why she stayed and asking her what she needs tonight. By the end of the meeting, no one in the room was looking at Evelyn as Grant Whitaker's discarded wife. They were looking at her as a woman with a clear plan. The Whitaker Foundation Gala was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Grant had planned it for months. It was supposed to be his annual victory lap. Donors, cameras, elegant speeches, photographs of generosity arranged beneath crystal chandeliers. But the audit had begun. The board had received preliminary findings, and the women Grant thought he had successfully silenced were no longer willing to protect the version of him he sold to the room. Attorney Ma told Evelyn she did not have to attend. "You do not need a public confrontation to prove you are telling the truth," she said. Evelyn understood that. Still, she chose to go, not because she wanted revenge, not because she wanted Grant to suffer in front of strangers the way she had suffered. She went because the foundation had carried her name for years. She had helped build it, and she refused to let him use her absence as one more way to erase her. When Evelyn entered the ballroom, conversation stopped, not dramatically, not all at once, but in small ripples. A donor near the bar paused mid-sentence. A former board member looked away. 2 women Evelyn had mentored through the foundation years earlier recognized her and crossed the room to greet her first. That mattered more than the whispers. Grant stood near the stage in a black tuxedo, holding a champagne glass he did not drink from. For 1 second, his face looked almost relieved to see her. Then he saw Attorney Ma at Evelyn's side, and the relief disappeared. He approached carefully, not too fast, not angry enough for other people to notice. "Evelyn," he said, as though nothing had happened, "you look beautiful." She did not answer. "I was hoping we could talk privately." "No," Evelyn said. His smile tightened. "You are making this difficult." "No," she said again, more calmly. "I stopped making it easy for you." Grant's eyes changed. It happened quickly. A flash of the man he had been when no one else could see. "You have no idea what you are doing," he said. Evelyn looked at him. For the first time in a long time, she said, "I do." Attorney Ma stepped forward just enough to make it clear the conversation was over. Grant walked away before anyone could see him lose control. But Evelyn saw it. Not rage, not heartbreak, fear. Because control only works when the person being controlled still believes they have no choices. The gala began late. The board chair took the stage first. She thanked the donors. She acknowledged the foundation's work. Then, with a voice that did not shake, she announced that the board had initiated an independent review of several financial practices and had accepted Grant Whitaker's immediate leave of absence pending that review. There was no applause. There was only silence. The kind of silence that arrives when a room full of people realizes they may have been standing beside a lie. Grant tried to move toward the stage. A board member stopped him. Not violently, not dramatically, just firmly. For the first time in years, someone else was telling Grant he could not go wherever he wanted, say whatever he wanted, and expect everyone to make space for him. Grant turned toward Evelyn afterward. "You are ruining everything," he said. His voice was quiet, almost pleading. For a moment, Evelyn saw the old trap inside the sentence. He wanted her to feel responsible for the consequences of his choices. He wanted her to become the woman who comforted him while he hurt her. But that woman was gone. Evelyn held his gaze. "No," she said, "I stopped helping you hide it." Grant had no answer, not one that mattered. The investigation did not end that night. There was no dramatic court verdict under chandeliers. No instant recovery of every dollar. No single speech that returned Evelyn the years she had spent questioning herself. But the lie had cracked. And once it cracked, it could not be rebuilt around her silence. In the months that followed, the legal process continued. There were depositions, financial reviews, documents that confirmed what Evelyn had begun to understand in that hotel suite. Grant had used marital assets, foundation accounts, and her own signature to protect himself while making her believe she had nothing. The court ordered protections that prevented further movement of certain assets while the case proceeded. The foundation reorganized under new leadership. Several community programs that had existed mainly for publicity were audited and rebuilt. Marjorie cooperated through counsel and resigned from every role tied to the organization. Evelyn did not celebrate another woman's loss, but she also did not carry responsibility for it. Accountability was not cruelty. It was the truth being allowed to stand. A year after Valentine's Day, the Open Door Foundation opened its first permanent office. It was not a grand hotel ballroom. It was a warm community space with soft chairs, private meeting rooms, a small children's corner, secure lockers, and a resource desk staffed by people trained to listen without judgment. The foundation partnered with local advocates, legal clinics, financial counselors, shelters, and hotels willing to provide emergency stays through a survivor-centered process. Evelyn insisted on one principle above all others. No woman would be required to tell her entire story before receiving immediate help. Safety first, details later. She placed the words in a frame near the entrance, not as decoration, as a promise. Opening day, Lena arrived early with flowers and a box of pastries. Mrs. Han came with a small ceramic bowl for the front desk, saying every place that welcomed people should have something beautiful that did not need an explanation. Attorney Ma came late because she had been in court, but when she walked through the door, Evelyn hugged her without hesitation. Sojin arrived quietly. He did not stand beside Evelyn for photographs. He did not speak at the podium. He did not make the launch about the hotel's contribution or his own generosity. He sat near the back while Evelyn told the room why the foundation existed. She spoke about practical support. She spoke about dignity. She spoke about how leaving was not one brave leap, but a series of choices made possible when someone stopped treating survival like a personal failure. And when her voice caught, she did not apologize. She breathed, then continued. And people often say, Evelyn told the room, that they do not know what to say to someone who is being controlled, isolated, or hurt. She looked out at the faces before her. Start here. I believe you. You do not have to decide everything today. What do you need to be safe tonight? The room was silent. Then someone began to clap. Not loudly at first, but steadily. Evelyn looked down for a moment. She thought of the hotel lobby, of the red gown, of the gift she had held in her hands while Grant decided she no longer deserved a room, a card, a tea, or a place beside him. For years she had believed he had left her outside. Now she understood something different. He had pushed her toward the first door that belonged to her. Near the end of the event, a woman entered, carrying one small bag. She stood just inside the doorway, frozen. Her eyes moved from the resource desk to the people in the room, then back to the floor. She looked embarrassed, terrified, like she had already rehearsed every reason someone might tell her she was asking for too much. Evelyn knew that look. She had worn it once. She walked toward the woman slowly, not rushing her, not asking questions she was not ready to answer. "Hi," Evelyn said. The woman looked up. Evelyn smiled gently. "You are safe here." The woman's mouth trembled. Evelyn held the door open wider. "And you do not owe anyone your silence." The woman stepped inside, and Evelyn stood beside the open door, no longer asking who would save her, no longer asking whether she had earned the right to be safe, no longer confusing love with the fear of losing everything. She had lost a marriage. She had lost an illusion, but she had found her voice, her name, her choices, her future, and a door she could now hold open for someone else. Did you see yourself, or someone you care about, in this story? Have you ever been made to feel guilty for asking where the money is, where your documents are, why your name is on papers you do not understand, or why you cannot access the life you help support? Have you been told that needing safety makes you disloyal, difficult, unstable, or ungrateful? You are not weak for trusting someone. You are not foolish for needing help. And you do not have to figure out every next step alone. A boundary can begin with one sentence. A safer future can begin with one person who believes you. Her story is fictional, but pattern is real. Dear hearts, thank you for spending this time with us in the Velvet Circle. If you haven't already, subscribe and become part of the family. See you in the next story. One final request. If you saw yourself or someone you care about in this story, don't stay quiet. Tell someone. Ask for help.